I will begin with the acknowledgement of the traditional lands. We begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us with life. This land upon which HDSB is situated is on the ancestral treaty and title lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Michizagig Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Michizagig territory in the past and present continues to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HDSB is committed to continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties and responsibilities, and Indigenous rights, while actively maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for the land. I will now call for a motion for the approval of the agenda. Moved by Robbie. Do we need seconders? In public, yes. Yeah, thank you. Seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, that carries. Do we have any declarations of possible conflicts of interest? Thank you. Seeing none, I will move to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Audit Committee, February 13th, 2024? Robbie, thank you. Would you like to second again? Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That carries. We will now move on to action items, the first being 3.2.1, the external audit plan for 2023-2024 financial statements audit. Lillian, I believe you're presenting this.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the committee for having us here today to present to you our external audit plan for the year. We will take the materials as having been read, so we will just go over some of the key highlights for this year's audit plan that we want to share with the committee, focusing on the major changes compared to prior year's audit plan. For the committee's information, on an annual basis, we perform two specific pieces of work with the school board. One is the audit of the annual financial statements at the August 31st year end, to which we will report back to you on the results in the fall. The other piece of work that we perform is as it relates to the March 31st reporting to the Ministry of Education, the EFIS reporting, which we're currently in the process of completing as of this point. So we're actually actively in the field right now with the finance staff working through that piece of work. So the audit plan today will primarily cover the annual audit for the August 31st year end. What we have included in our audit plan for this year are 7 areas of audit risk, which you would have seen in the audit plan itself. A few of these areas are new this year, but by and large, 5 of the 7 are a continuation and consistent with previous years, and are reflective of the areas that we intend to spend the bulk of our audit time in the field focusing on. We do perform a testing on all of the areas in the financial statements that are material, but these are the areas that we believe in your role as those charged with governance that you should be focusing on. So I'll be asking Anthony on my team, who's the audit manager, to speak to some of these areas a little bit later on as I move on with the audit plan. We've also included in our plan this year a confirmation of our preliminary audit materiality and the method by which it'll be determined. For the committee's information, our audit materiality helps us determine the extent of audit testing that will be performed as part of the year-end work that we will be undertaking in October. We will report back to you at the conclusion of the audit on the final materiality level that we end up using. So this is of pertinence to you because we are required to assess on the whole if the financial statements are materially misstated by reference to this materiality level. So we'll be reporting that back at the conclusion. We do have an information in here in the executive summary that speaks to our responsibilities relating to fraud risks. So a reminder to the committee that this is not a forensic audit, it is a financial statements audit. So our focus is on determining whether or not there are material misstatements to the financial statements itself. We do have certain responsibilities as it relates to our need to address the risk of fraud in the financial statements. So that would have been covered in our annual audit risk assessment. I think those are all the items that I wanted to highlight, but I'll pass on to Anthony on my team to speak to the audit risks that we want to highlight for your information, focusing on the new items this year.
So as Lillian mentioned, there was a summary of risks on one of the previous pages, but they do start in detail on page 11 of the Audit Committee package. She did mention that 5 of them are consistent with our audit plans in past years, and there haven't been any changes to those. The first 2 are presumed risks that are included in our assurance standards that we follow that focus on the revenue recognition that's followed by the entity, and then management override of controls, given management of the entity is in a unique position to override controls that are in place. And if you look on I'm not going to go through them in detail, but we do have our procedures and things that we do to cover those risks in our audit plan. The next 3 on the following page are risks that have continued from past years, mainly school-generated funds due to the decentralization of controls at each school. We do attend school visits every year for a sample of schools where we test a sample of transactions and confirm balances in cash that are held by the schools in that year. The next one is government transfers, specifically relating to capital contributions. These can tend to be large in nature, given that they're capital items, and they are agreements with the government for funding for these capital items that might have complex requirements in them. There's also the added layer that ministry direction to the school boards doesn't always align with their applicable financial reporting framework. And through that, we do test a sample of those transactions with the focus on making sure that they're disclosed properly and they're recorded in line with the financial reporting framework that the school board follows. The next one is on employee future benefits. This is the school board does engage actuaries as an expert to help determine their liability each year in line with their defined benefits plans. Given that there's significant judgments and assumptions used, and that it's an external expert used by management, it gives rise to this risk of the financial statements. We do communicate with the actuaries every year, along with reviewing the report that they provide to the school board, and we also test the inputs that are used and the rates and assumptions that are used in coming up with that estimate. Moving on to the next page, these are the 2 new risks this year that have been added that you wouldn't have seen in prior years. The first one is over the implications of Bill 124. It's worth noting that the liability to employees for Bill 124 is actually carried at the ministry level, but they have flowed funds through the school board to disperse to these employees, and they've done it through an increase in grants for student needs, as opposed to a separate specific funding stream, which there is recognition of both expenses and revenue in the school board's financial statements that we'll have to focus on by testing detail of those transactions, ensuring that the proper disclosures are included in the financial statements, and analyzing management's treatment of those revenue and expenses. The last one here is for any new accounting standards that are effective for fiscal 2024. There are 3. The first one, P3160, is public and private partnerships. PS 3400 is revenue, and PSG 8 is over purchased intangibles. They all will come into effect, although we're only expecting that PS 3160 public-private partnerships will have an impact on the school board. They have been preparing for the adoption of this standard, and we've been in discussions with them over the past number of months in terms of identifying and analyzing any contracts that are in place that might qualify as a public-private partnership. And then over the next few months, as we get towards our audit fieldwork and completion, we're going to be continuing with those discussions over these. I think it was one contract, so that was identified, providing input as requested, working with management to review the disclosures that are made in the financial statements to make sure they're in accordance with their applicable financial reporting framework. Although we haven't seen a potential impact of those other two standards that I mentioned, we're still continue to review management's assessment of those and ensure that they aren't applicable or don't have an impact in the current year. And we do have specific procedures that have been identified by the Ministry of Education for the March 31st reporting that we're currently working through this week.
Thanks, Cindy. I don't think there's anything else that we want to cover in our presentation, but happy to take any questions that you may have for us.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Anthony and Lillian? Thank you, Paula.
Just a couple questions, of course. So one of the questions I had was just about ESG reporting or requirements. If, we talked about that, I think, at the last meeting, just if we're expecting to see anything that might come through later on, because I didn't see anything in the letter. So I don't know if you have anything to add on or comments on that.
Yeah, so I would say one of the things that we are monitoring, because we do have discussions with various ministries as well as the Auditor General's office, we actually specifically asked that question as to whether or not that's going to come. That's in consideration. So nothing that we are aware of right now. We actually just spoke with the Auditor General's office very recently as it relates to group audit, and they had mentioned that they're still assessing.
Okay. And sorry, Anthony, one of my ears is plugged, so I just want to make sure. You said there were 3 new standards. One is P3s. Then we have, did you say revenue?
Yes, revenue.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that one was covered.
P3 revenue and PSG 8.
Okay, great. And then the last question I had was just about, and I think I may have asked this last year as well. So on page, I guess it's page 8 of your letter. I'm just trying to think what numbering system to use here. This is where you talk about innovating the approach, and there was just some commentary on AI tools. So I just wanted to make sure that we understood the use of AI tools on the audit, and again, just about, data integrity and those sorts of things. So if you wanted to.
Yeah, sure. So we have an in-house AI tool. It's called GenD. So to the extent that we're planning on using AI at this point, it's purely limited to research. And that's all we're actually allowed to use AI for. And it's just technical accounting, nothing being transferred that's client related. So, and it's a closed database, it's our own.
So there's nothing being used to summarize documents or anything like that at this point?
We are not currently using it, not here specifically.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns? Robbie?
What's not here? Is there anything that you considered as a possible risk factor that didn't make this list that's maybe on the bubble?
I would say no. Certainly all of the items that we thought about and considered and thought were judgment areas, we've made it on this list. So I'll give you an example. Even as it relates to the adoption of the P3 standard, we recognize that it's not expected to be very material, but we've put it here anyways. So I would say no.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I will read the motion. Be it resolved that the Audit Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees the approval of the external audit plan for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2024, prepared by the Board's external auditors, Deloitte LLP. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Paula. Seconder? Robbie? Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That carries. I will move on to 3.2.2, the Regional Internal Audit Plan for 2024-2025. And
thank you very much. So at the February meeting, we brought forward the risk assessment, which is updated twice a year. And at that point, we talked about that repairs and maintenance would be a good area for review this year. We haven't looked at it in a long time. And with the deferred maintenance that has occurred at the board over this prolonged time period, we felt it would be good now to look at repairs and maintenance. So we're putting that forward as the main audit topic for next year, along with audit follow-up reviews for the outstanding audit points. So those exist in privacy, procurement, student mental health, and penetration testing.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or concerns? Robbie?
So the reference framework for this is the multi-year plan, which is coming to an end this year and a new one is being adopted. Is there a plan for a renewed strategic enterprise risk management process in the upcoming year following the adoption of the new MYP?
So management is the ones who update all the time. Oh, Roxana has her hand up too. So they go through a process twice a year of updating any of the risks related to the MYSP, but I will pass it over to Roxana to provide more detail.
Go ahead, Roxana.
Thank you. Thank you, and for the chair. Once the multi-year plan is updated, we are now starting with reviewing our policy and procedure, which we'll bring to the May Committee of the Whole and go through a quick check on the risk appetite. Are we still in the same headspace in terms of the willingness to accept or avoid risks as we were 4 years ago? And then at that point in time, we'll just wait for the multi-year plan to finalize to see what are the priorities for the next 4 years. And we will begin again the process of assessing our risks. What are the risks associated with the multi-year plan? What are some residual risks we want to consider? And the corporate risk profile will be reevaluated, essentially will be redone. So it will be a new corporate risk profile. Some of them may stay and some may change. So we will be going through that and a bit of a presentation, framework, review or overview with the board. I was going to suggest that what we've done through the implementation, we had a session at the board of the committee of the whole with the board of trustees and invited the external members of the audit committee. So this way everybody was all in the same space and we would go through the presentation and had input from both the audit committee and the board through those sessions. So that would be the plan for sometimes in the fall, I would suggest. It depends on the timelines of approving the new multi-year plan.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I will read the motion. Be it resolved that the Audit Committee recommends that the 2024-2025 Regional Internal Audit Plan, which includes a review of the repairs and maintenance process plus follow-up of any remaining action plans, be approved by the Board of Trustees. Moved by Robbie, thank you. Seconded by? Thank you, Paula. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, that carries. We will now move on to 3.2.3, Risk Management Policy and Administrative Procedure Review, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Ngoy.
Thank you for the chair. There have been just minor recommendations for changes and terminology in the risk management governance procedure and administrative procedure that follows. They've been marked in track changes for the audit committee's review and recommendations. We will incorporate your feedback, and the plan is to provide it to the board or the committee of the whole, I should say, first for discussion in May, and then to the board for approval in June. There are not many changes, just an updated reference to the multi-year strategic planning for school boards, as this is a strategic risk management. And the Better Schools and Students Outcome Act does have a section on expectations on strategic priorities for school boards. So we've added that in here as well. Risk management is also part of governance. It does not replace governance, but more so it's a tool for good governance, hence the initial good governance guide that has been included in the documents. And I know we've had some questions come in from a couple of the members. So I just wanted to mention that in my review. And then in the risk administrative procedure, I should say, so the next document, same just terminology just to be consistent. We will also put it in the new template before it would be posted on our website. And then just one line was struck at the very end. I think there was a question around that as well. When we have implemented this originally, the plan was to, when we can, trickle it down to throughout the organization. At this point, this remains a strategic risk management, so it is used mainly by the senior team. The senior team has discussions with management, our managers, department heads, administrators in schools. Training and the decision-making tool that incorporates risk management has been shared and available to managers and principals. What we do not do is an active monitoring of risk management framework implementation at that level. So we just recommended to strike that. It can remain for sure, but we made a recommendation to strike that just because we do use risk explicitly to inform our decision making throughout the organization. We don't necessarily have the same level of documentation, evaluation, and monitoring of risks other than the key strategic risks that we report on the corporate risk profile. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will read the motion. Be it resolved that the Audit Committee recommends the proposed changes to the risk management policy and administrative procedure be approved by the Board of Trustees. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Robbie. Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, that carries. That moves us into Section 4, Communication to the Audit Committee, 4.1 for information, 4.1.1 at the Regional Internal Auditor Status Report. I will turn it over to Andrea.
Thank you very much. So the 24-25 audit plan proposal, so we've already done that. And then just every year we assert that internal audit is independent of the board. So I am doing that now, and we were allowed to carry out our responsibilities in a free and unbiased manner.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Andrea? Seeing none, I will move us to 4.1.2, timelines for financial reporting presentation to the board. Roxanne, it's all yours.
Thank you. And this is just an updated list of key dates as it pertains to both the current year, 23-24 fiscal year, as we're going to be wrapping it up, looking at the next quarterly financial report to be provided. It says here June 24th. I know that at the last night's board meeting, that date has changed to, I believe, June 19th. So we will be making that change as we go forward, as well as the audited financial statements in November. So we're going to look at the schedule of meetings and update those dates. And as it relates to the current fiscal, as it relates to the next fiscal year, we're in the budget development process. The last night's board meeting, we presented the release of the core education funding. So the grants for student needs terminology has changed. We will provide the link here, but it is also available in our package for the board on the public website. And the next steps in the budget process will be the committee of the whole presentation for the draft budget review on May 22nd, and then a board approval during June. So we will be updating the links and the dates as we go through. I just wanted to mention those couple of updates to this list. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or concerns? Okay. Seeing none, I will keep us moving along. We have now reached section 5, private session. I would entertain a motion to rise into private. Thank you, Robbie. Seconded by? Thank you. It's only the two of you, so. Any questions, concerns, comments about rising into private? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. We are now in private. You should probably shut the doors. We have any questions, comments, concerns on rising into public? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. We are now in public session. Having gone into public session, the next item would be approval of business transacted in the Audit Committee private session. There was no action items within the Audit Committee private session, so we have exhausted our agenda, and I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your time.